All right, last one for this particular concept, and this one's relatively short, so you don't have to worry about spending too much time here. But what we're going to talk about is energy intake and expenditure. We're going to talk about metabolic rate, basal metabolic rate, and total metabolic rate. We'll talk about metabolic rate and body temperature and what happens when body temperature is really high or low and how we can control that. So energy intake, this basically comes down to the amount of food and the type of food you consume. Right, so if we look at, that energy intake should be relatively in balance with the expenditures, meaning what are you putting out? Your basal metabolic rate is about 60%. Physical activity is usually 30 to 35, and then food-induced thermogenesis, right, the creation of heat, is going to be 5 to 10. Now, basal metabolic rate, this is like the baseline. The bare minimum, right, is going on in your body. Your body is quiet, you are resting, you are fasting, right? You're doing nothing, right? So this is what you need to, this is basically like the rate of your energy expenditure, the amount of energy you're expending just on the bare bones level, right? You've done absolutely nothing. You've sat around in bed all day long. You've eaten nothing, right? How much energy are you expending, right? That's basal metabolic rate. Your metabolic rate overall, right, is going to include the other factors like exercise, what hormones, your nervous system, your body temperature, what food are you eating, how old are you, what are you male, are you female, what climate do you live in, how well do you sleep, how well is your nutrition, right? So your metabolic rate, your overall rate, right, and it includes all these other factors. If your metabolic rate is lower than the energy you bring in, we grow. Basically, if your metabolic rate is lower than the food you eat, you're going to gain weight or add fat, right? If your metabolic is higher than the energy you consume, then people lose weight, right? So this is where people get caught up in CECO, right? Calories in, calories out, right? You have to pay attention to the calories you bring in, and you have to pay attention to the calories you're burning, right? That's kind of the baseline with that concept, right? Is that if you are bringing in more energy than you are burning, that energy doesn't just disappear. It has to be part of something, and it's gonna join part of you by becoming fat tissue. And that if you want to lose that fat tissue, you have to make sure your metabolic rate is higher than whatever you're bringing in so that your body is forced to use its storages, right? Use that fat up that it has stored away. And that can be really difficult, right? We have to be fair here. That is not a very easy thing to overcome. The metabolic reactions, right? The rates are also control the amount of heat that we produce. We need to have a relatively normal body temperature, about 37 degrees Celsius. And so we have to have heat loss equal to the heat production. Basically, if your body temperature is going to stay the same, if you're making heat, you have to get rid of that heat too, right? For all the heat you're producing, you also got to get rid of it. Otherwise, if you're not getting rid of that heat, your body temperature is going to go up. So if excess heat is produced, you start to lose mass, and this can become problematic in that it could cause proteins to denature. But if your body temperature drops too low, there's not enough heat made, we gain mass, and that can lead to cardiac arrhythmias. Both are which bad, right? So we can't go too high of a body temperature, we can't go too low. We have to reach this equilibrium. And so we have thermoreceptors in the skin to help with this, right? So we are generally familiar with that, especially at the time of recording for this. It's summer, it's August, and so it's very hot out. And so we are going to enact activities that counteract, right, the loss or gain of heat. So it's really hot out, right? That means my body temperature is going to go up, right, if I don't lose the excess heat. Right? Or even if it's not hot out, right? I'm doing some sort of activity that is increasing the heat being produced, like I'm exercising. How do I get rid of the excess heat? That's where we go into our negative feedback loop, right? So something I can do is I can sweat, right? My sweat then has a cooling effect that helps remove that heat from my body. Or it's cold, right? Something has disrupted it, my body temperature has dropped. Thermoreceptors in my skin, my hypothalamus, they go, whoa, it's getting chilly, right? Control center then goes, hey, we need to do something to warm up. We send those signals out. We then kind of shift how blood is flowing through the skin to bring the blood down, basically. We can use vasoconstriction to shunt blood to the deeper blood vessels in the skin so that we don't lose as much heat to dissipation. We release hormones to increase cellular metabolism, so we increase cellular metabolism to burn through more. Skeletal muscles contract, you shiver, right, to generate heat. And then the thyroid's even going to release thyroid hormones to increase your metabolic rate. This is all done to increase your body temperature. And so same thing in reverse, right? If it's too high, right, we can go backwards with that and use counteractive measures against the body temperature getting too high.